Hey, what's going on, guys? Part 5 of our C# learning tutorial. This time, since I'm going to continue going on with game programming, and we're going to do something that I'm pretty sure almost every game has utilized before, and that is spawning an object or spawning an object in. And I'm just going to consider this test class done, and we're going to make a new one. So in our Solution Explorer, click on we'll make a new folder. Okay, so add new folder, and let's call this, I don't know, player. Now you can either hit Control-Shift-A or right-click Add New Class, but I just do Control-Shift-A. Instead of class, we're just going to do code file, so it's a blank file, and let's call this spawn object. All right. So first things first, we're going to need to use that using statement using Unity Engine. Then we'll make a new public class spawn object, inherit from mono behavior, and then our curly braces. So the same setup as our test class had. And we're going to make a new property of a different type. It's not a number or a boolean. This is going to be a game object, and this is something that comes built into the Unity Engine, and we're just going to call it object. Or not object, we'll call it obj. Okay, so basically this is something that we can assign inside the inspector to serialize it, and then we can reference that same object as a prefab to spawn something in. Alright, so let's go ahead and make our update function. Remember, this is the one that's called every single frame, and let's have it so every time we click the mouse button we'll spawn a new object. Alright, we'll do well, okay, this tutorial is also going to explain a new concept called if-else statements. Basically, whenever you want to do something in code, you're going to have to do, you're usually going to want to do a check to see if something is true. Remember, we were talking about in here earlier, we could do a check to see if this bool is, if the first integer is greater than 5. We can do a check this way too. We can have an if, and then a parenthesis, and then whatever we want to check. So we can check if input dot get mouse button down Okay, so let me explain this a little bit. Whenever you make an if statement, it looks like if parentheses and then curly cues. So if this is inside here, this condition is true, execute the code inside the curly braces. If not, then just skip over everything inside here. Now, input.getMouseButtonDown, this is a method that comes built into the Unity engine. Basically, it just checks if our mouse button was pressed this frame. And 0 is just which mouse button. So 0 is the left mouse button, 1 is the right mouse button, and 2 is the middle mouse button. Alrighty, so if our mouse button is down, first let's start out by just testing to see if this works. I'm going to do print, and we'll do click. And what print does is the same thing as debug.log, it's just a faster way of typing it. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out. And don't forget that we have to attach our our spawn object script to there. You'll notice we have our obj property there ready to be serialized. If we hit play, every time we click, it should say click down here. And it does. Alrighty. So next thing we want to do is actually spawn this object here. So the keyword for the method for spawning an object inside the Unity engine is called instantiate. So type in instantiate. Now, if you have Visual Studio's, whenever you call a new method, if you type in the open parenthesis, it should have information about the parameters which you can put inside of a method. What parameters are is data that you pass from one method to another. So we can pass in data from this update method right here into this instantiate method. And so as you can see, one of two, we can pass in an object, and then an overflow method is the position and a rotation. But we don't need to go into that. We're just going to spawn in obj, which, as you remember, is our game object. Hit save, go in here, And now, it should spawn an object. However, we have to make sure that this is, we assign something in there. So go up here to the menu, hit Game Object, Create Other. Let's create a cube, if I can find it. Cube. Alrighty. While we're at it, inside of our Assets folder, create a new folder. Call it Prefabs. And just drag a cube from our hierarchy onto our project panel, and it should create a new prefab for us. Now if we delete the cube from our scene view, it should still be inside our project folder. Now click on main camera, we can drag this prefab onto this object. Hit run, and now if you click, it should spawn that object. Now by default, it spawns in based on our camera view, which is, you know, whatever is centered on my screen, this here. But we want to tell it where to spawn. So that's where we have in these other parameters here. It takes in a vector 3 position and a quaternion rotation. So I'm gonna explain this a bit later, but just for now, just put in vector 3.0 and quaternion dot identity. These are basically the default values, so it'll spawn it at the world origin and the 0, 0, 0 rotation. Alrighty. And also, while we're at it, I'm gonna go ahead and save the scene. Let's make a new folder. Call it scenes. We're gonna call this level 1. Okay, let's create a new game object, and this time a plane. Let's, in the inspector, change its position to 0, 0, 0. And we're going to delete our camera, actually. While we're at it, let's create a light, create other directional light. That's basically a sun. It doesn't matter where it is positioned, it'll always shine on that direction. And the last thing I want to do is, if we go into our standard assets, this is something that Unity provides for us. Just drag in our first person controller here like this. 0, 0, and its Y position, make it like 1.1, something like that, so it's above the ground. And now we're going to add on our spawn object script onto him. Go back to our prefabs folder and drag cube onto there. And now every time we click, it should spawn in a cube at 0, 0, 0. And there you go. And you'll notice now we can move around, we can look. These are all built-in things that comes with the these standard assets. Basically, the character controller, that's built into the engine, and then these three scripts are what, these three scripts are what come with it: a mouse look, character motor, and an FPS input controller. So it speeds up the process, so we don't have to do it. There's jumping here, and every time we click, it spawns a new one. However, since they're inside each other, you can't see them. Alrighty. And so that's about it. I don't want to make these tutorials too lengthy. In the next video, we'll explore something else.